Hey everybody, welcome to Unfiltered podcast with Pastor Jason Gaszak. We're so glad that you're joining me today. And today is a special day because I'm actually going to be interviewed by my son, my oldest, Austin Gaszak, who is with us today. Say hey.
What's up, everybody?
Yep, it's going to be a good day, but what I want to first do is just kind of remind everybody what this show is all about. This is Unfiltered for a reason. We are talking about topics biblically, socially, and politically most of the time, and we do it in an unfiltered way where I am just kind of speaking my mind and how I feel. I don't have really any notes. I've got my phone just to reference some scriptures for today's topic, but that's really what it's about. So I encourage you to share this podcast with somebody you know. Let them know that this happens usually 2 times a month is all I normally do. And if you hit the subscribe button, it'll automatically notify you when a brand new episode comes out because we would love for you to be a part of the podcast family. And then obviously like it and comment on there. Let us know what you think. You can agree, you can disagree, whatever you want. I'll do my best to respond to you. And today, what I want to do, Austin, is I just want you to ask me some questions about a topic that we've discussed.
Yeah.
And it's to me personally, I think it's probably one of the most controversial topics to discuss just in general between the leadership of the church and the churchgoers.
Yeah. And
I don't know of too many people that really kind of put it out there and talk about this like we're getting ready to today. I know there are people, but I'll preface to everybody that is listening, you know, I think what I want is I kind of want to educate some people on the topic, number one, and then also just let people see my heart, my tone, and maybe my frustration in the mix of that when it comes to this particular topic. And the topic is people leaving the church.
Yeah.
So, well, what do you want to ask me first?
Well, I think, I think we this is something that we've been, I don't know, for whatever reason, it's been a heightened topic lately because we've seen some people leave. And anytime you start to see that happen, and it's not like people in droves, but you have these kind of, they say some things happen in 2s and 3s.
Yeah.
It seems that this is one of those things that when someone does decide to leave, their church home that they've served in, that they've raised their kids in, it can be discouraging. It can be frustrating even, and it can be confusing. And so I think maybe what people want to know is, as a pastor, why does that hit so hard? Why does that hit? And it's not every single person that leaves, but why does it hit maybe hard in general, but then sometimes it hits harder more than others? Does that make sense?
Oh, it's a great question. Yeah. Well, I can tell you, Aaron and I talk about this particular subject. We've just talked about the subject because, yeah, you're right. I mean, we know without a shadow of doubt that people are going to leave the church. Yeah. It's been going on for thousands of years. Not everybody is meant to be in the same place forever and ever. Yes, we have lifers here, no doubt, but it's a very small group of people that are lifers. It's just very rare because people move, things happen, life changes,
Yep.
But probably for me, because we know this is going to happen, we understand it, but that doesn't negate the fact that it still bothers us. And I think it's because when people leave, they notoriously say it's not personal. Mm-hmm. That's what they say. It's not personal. It's nothing personal. Mm-hmm. And then they basically don't tell you the real reason why they're leaving. They give you a reason, but it's usually a soft padded, or maybe it's partially true. There are times it has been 100% true, no doubt, but most of the time, I bet you could ask any other pastor and they would tell you 98% of the time it's never the real reason.
Yeah.
And I think that's what hurts the most, because it's like you want things to change. You're looking for leadership to do something different, but yet you don't tell the leadership what they're doing or what's bothering you. You don't give them the real reason. So my question is, how are we supposed to change? How are we supposed to evaluate? How are we supposed to take a step back and look at what we're doing if we don't know what we're doing. Every person on the earth has a blind spot. All of us have blind spots. That's why you have your wife and your kids and your friends, is they hopefully see what you don't see and bring attention to that. But they couldn't expect you to make any change if you don't bring attention to it. You can't just say, well, you need to take a look at your life and see where you're wrong. It's like, okay, but I don't see that I'm doing wrong. Yeah. So I think the simple answer is, they say it's not personal, but it is personal, because just about every single time when someone leaves, it has to do with the pastor or his leadership or the vision of the church or its culture or something we're doing or not doing, something we're saying or we're not saying. So it has to do with us ultimately, since we're the leader. So when people say it's not personal, it actually is personal on both accounts. It's personal for you, it's personal for me, but then the conversation never happens. And I think that's why it's so aggravating.
Well, and I totally get that. And I think this is one of those things where unless you're in that seat, it's hard to, and what I mean is the seat of the lead pastor, because even as a staff member, our staff members are going to have different levels of emotion as this pertains to them. But even on their team, when someone on their team leaves, they can parallel what that feeling is like. But unless you're in the seat of being the lead pastor, you really just don't know what that really entails.
No.
You really don't know.
You can say all day long what you might think you know, but until you're actually in the chair leading a church of people, hundreds, sometimes thousands of people, and all the weight is on you, what you're saying, how you're leading, the things that you're doing, the way you steward the money, the way you steward the leadership, and how you build leaders and train leaders to do what you feel is necessary. And then when people leave your church because they don't agree with it, then it's a huge weight. The weight in itself is unbearable because it's just a lot of pressure. And then on top of that, I know people don't intentionally try to do this, but what they end up doing is they put pastors on pedestals all the time. We're on this pedestal, and we can't ever make a mistake, and we can't ever screw up, and because if we do, we're not really called, or we're not men of God or women of God, and why are you in that position? You don't deserve to be in that position. And that's such a high standard, and it's absolutely ridiculous because we are human, and we have flaws, and we're messed up just like everybody else. Now, in saying that, everybody needs to understand that we are held to a much higher standard. There's no doubt. We are held accountable for what we say and what we do. The difference is we're held more accountable to God, not the people. And I take that very seriously, who I'm held accountable to, because one day when I get to heaven, I got to answer for everything I've done here. And I'm going to be rewarded for the things that I did well, and I'm not going to be not rewarded, or I'm not going to be chastised penalized, but I'm still going to be held accountable for that, and I take that very seriously. So I think the weight of that is extremely heavy. And listen, people aren't flocking to become a pastor.
Right.
Matter of fact, today they have a hard time finding pastors. And the reason why they're having a hard time finding pastors is because people are so brutal. Christians are brutal. It's not the worldly people as much as it is Christians. Christians are the most selfish, ungraceful, unforgiving human beings on the earth.
You talked about this Sunday, how we don't make allowances for other people, especially people that are called or people that are in leadership. We suck at that. We don't make allowance.
No, people don't. Christians don't make allowance for other people's faults. We're really good at making the allowance for a brand new person to come into the church and get saved. But once they get saved, once they're now involved into the family, they're serving, they're doing all the things that a Christian does. Maybe it's 1 year in, maybe it's 5 or 10 years in. All of a sudden now when someone makes a mistake, it's like judgment comes. And now we're super critical of those people. We're super judgmental. We don't have a lot of grace for them. We don't have a lot of unforgiveness or forgiveness for them. And it just is, it's insanity when Christians should be the ones. We should be the most grace-filled people, the most merciful, the most forgiving people in all of the world. the most understanding, and we're not.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest issue. Christians are the most selfish people that I've ever seen, including me. I can be very selfish. So I'm not talking about anybody else but me and everybody else like me that is labeled a Christian.
Sure. We
We have to fight to not be selfish.
Sure.
We have to fight to not be flawed. And unfortunately, it makes it very difficult because we make mistakes. And, again, it's funny because like if somebody in the church makes a mistake, they want us and everybody around them to have the most grace, almost to the place where they're like, listen, I don't want a consequence. I'm so sorry. Just, I shouldn't be penalized because I'm apologizing. Well, that's not true. Every decision have consequences. Some can be less than others. I mean, one of the things we used to teach our kids is when you tell the truth, the consequence is going to be less, but there still could be a consequence. It just may not be as severe. And I think it's the same way in the church. And a lot of times we don't get to decide those consequences. Your spouse gets to decide the consequence. If you had an affair, I don't get to change what your spouse says, but your spouse gets to say whether I stay or go.
Or if you broke the law.
If you broke the law, I don't get to say, the law gets to say, the judge gets to say. Right. But at the end of the day, there's consequences with that. Now, for me, what I try to do is say, hey, you made a mistake. Yeah. Are you sorry for that? Yes, I made a huge mistake. Okay, well, there's most likely going to be a consequence, but just know we're going to walk through this with you. We're going to be beside you through everything you have to go through. Yeah. We're not leaving you. We're not kicking you out of the church because you made a bad decision. The only time you really get kicked out of the church is if you're not repentant. Right. If you're unrepentive and you just don't think you've done anything wrong and that you're not sorry, well then, biblically speaking, in Matthew 7, you go to your brother, you let them know what they've done wrong. They don't listen. You bring another brother along, and now you got accountability and they don't listen. Well, then you take them in front of church leadership. And if they don't listen in front of church leadership, then the Bible says to excommunicate them from your fellowship, which means have nothing to do with them. They need to be alone. They need to be isolated so they feel the pain of their sin, that nobody wants to be around them, hoping that it would bring them back to a place of restoration, of repentance. That's the whole point of it.
And then we bring them back into the fellowship.
And if they are, you bring them back into the fellowship, you love on them, you set up boundaries and guidelines, obviously guardrails, no doubt. Yeah. But we should be doing that for people. Yeah. And Austin, you know that we have done that for a lot of people.
We've done that for a lot. And here's the crazy part. Halfway through that restoration process is where we don't even get to, not that we want to, but I would say 99.9% of the people that have left, that have gone through something where they have fallen and we're in that restoration process with them, it's not that they're even to the point where they get unrepentant. It's that we're walking through that process with them and then they just disappear.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the mindset that we're over here just kicking people out of the church left and right because of moral issues is a fallacy.
Yeah.
Most of the time I feel like the shame or the guilt or just priorities change. They isolate, and when you get alone, you start to feel weird about things, and so then they silent quit.
Yep.
And so then we don't even get a chance. And then when we do call, like you had mentioned to Pastor Aaron, is there an ulterior motive? Well, no, we just haven't seen your face.
Yeah.
And we've gotten we've done life together, and now we don't even know where you're at. You won't return a call. Yeah. How frustrating is that?
Which is a whole nother level, because you got to think about it. We're damned if we do, yeah, and we're damned if we don't.
Yeah.
So if we call you to check in on you because we haven't seen you in a while, now we have some kind of motive of why you're not here or what we want from you. But if we don't call you because we're afraid you might think that, well, then we don't care.
Right.
That's what people say. Well, you didn't care about me because you didn't call me. Well, yeah, but if I would have called you, or if I did call you, now you're saying I have some other motive. And the way I like to explain that is the reason why I've never called you before is because you've been there every single week, and we've had conversation every single week, and we've had relationship in the church. And then I don't see you for a month. I'm going to reach out to you.
Right.
It's because I haven't seen you. I don't call you normally anyway, because I see you every week, checking in every week. So there is no ulterior motive like what people think.
Right.
But that's the stress of a pastor. And it's so easy to be on the other side of that, to come up with all your excuses and all your things and try to sit there and tell me how I'm supposed to be. But again, until you're there, you don't understand it.
Yeah.
And really all my wife and I, all we're trying to do is love people where they are, accept people where they are, help them grow by discipling them as much as we can. We're trying to bring up leaders in the church. We're trying to reach as many people as we can and pastor people on top of giving a teaching that can hopefully make it to where they can apply it in their life. That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, again, people that leave the church, they think we have a different ulterior motive. They think we're in it for the wrong reasons, or that we're money hungry, or we don't care, and all these different things. And it's not true. None of that is true. We're not about the money. Believe me. If this was about money, I would have a whole different job.
Yeah.
I could be a millionaire right now
Me too.
with the opportunities that I've had in my life that I have given up to do what I do now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then on top of it, I could have all the things in the world not being a pastor, and no one would say one word about me having those things.
Right.
But as soon as I have anything nice as a pastor, I'm stealing money from the church. Yeah. There is never a win-win in this situation. We know that going into it.
Right.
But I like to talk about this because it's like, I hope maybe some of you that have left the church, not our church, a church, maybe you have left our church. I would like for you to hear the other side of this, the heart behind just about every pastor in the world. I just had a pastor contact me the other day, well, specifically because my wife made a post, something about this. The post was very well written. Mm-hmm. It was a very well-rounded post talking about all the different kinds of people. And of course, people get hung up on the one part of the post. And the reason why people get hung up is because they still have some type of bitterness in their heart, because all the people that don't have any bitterness in their heart, don't have any issues, have done nothing but praise the post. Mm-hmm. Well done from the heart. They see it, they understand it. But when there's a problem, that's when it comes out because it's never been resolved. Yeah. It's an unresolved issue. And that's the frustration I have is if we would have just known why you left, if you could have just sat down with us and said, hey, man, this is really bothering me. I didn't feel like you cared for me. I didn't feel like you loved me. We'll sit down and we'll admit whatever it is that we need to admit. And let me just admit something that I have admitted in front of the whole entire church a few weeks ago, maybe. Maybe it's been a month ago, and I've admitted to the whole team, is I don't have the gift necessarily of like super caring for people. Yeah. In other words, I'm not the guy that if you show up to work every single day and you do your job, I'm not the guy that's going to go up and pat you on the back and say, man, I'm so glad you came to work. Right. You should come to work. You're getting paid to come to work. Why am I going to praise you for coming and doing your dang job? Mm-hmm. All right. That's my personality. Now, however, should we praise people for that, of doing a good job? Yes, we should. But it's the same thing coming when you're caring for people. I'm not the guy that I need people to coddle me and call me every time I stub my toe and ask me to pray about all these things. I'm not that guy. And because I'm not that guy, I struggle being the guy that I need to be for other people. And I've recognized that. Yeah. God has shown me that I need to be better at caring for people. If we're going to go to another level, I got to do a better job at caring for the people we have. And guess what? We have failed at that. We have a group of people here that do a great job. Yeah. But for me, myself, I can't speak for my wife. I'm going to speak for me. I have not done the greatest job at caring for people because I can't remember everything. Well, we've created a system that helps us be better at caring for people.
Yeah, it's that important. We've come up with a system to be that intentional.
Yeah, because, we've missed the boat, right? Yeah. Somebody's passed away, somebody had a surgery, somebody's this, somebody that, and we didn't know about it. Or sometimes somebody knew about it but didn't tell anybody else about it, which therefore I didn't know about it. And all these things, and please listen to me. How are we supposed to know something's going on in your life if you're not sharing it with somebody in the church? Yeah. If you're not telling us, how are we supposed to know what to pray for? How are we supposed to know to reach out when you don't tell us? And then there's another layer, Austin. When you do tell us, and we say, hey, we're so sorry you're going through that. Man, please let us know what we can do. And then you say, we don't need any help. Thank you for calling me. But then later down the road, you tell someone else that we never did care for you because we didn't do something. When it's like, wait a minute, we did call you. We offered help, but you didn't ask for it. And so again, now could we have done a better job following up? Yep, we could have. We should have followed up maybe better. Those are the things that we're working on today. We want to do better at following up with people and not just Hey, do you need any help? Nope, I don't need. Okay, and then going on.
Yeah.
That's where we failed.
Yeah.
And we got to get better at that because, I get it. Most people initially aren't going to say, yeah, I need this, I need that, because it's hard to ask for that.
Yeah.
So and that's where we failed.
And with our leaders, like whenever they get information, sometimes it's tricky to know, okay, is this information I should pass along?
Yeah.
It's challenging.
Is it too personal?
Did they want me? And you can't go up to somebody and say, 9 times out of 10, hey, you can, but it's just, you got to be careful how you do it. Hey, do you mind if I share that with other people? It's like, okay, well, that just feels weird.
Yep.
So it's this push me, pull me, type of whole thing.
Yep. So, you got that aspect. And again, people leave because they weren't cared for.
Yeah.
Right?
So that's one type.
They got offended because we didn't care for them. We didn't reach out to them. So, we've had, listen, I can't name everybody that's left, nor would I ever name a person, okay? I'm never going to do that because that is not the point. But we've had people in the past that have left and have gotten mad for this right here. Somebody in their family had passed away. A person that doesn't even go to our church. Mm-hmm. Nobody said anything, but there was an expectation that we were, 1, supposed to know, and 2, supposed to reach out and do something about it. Yeah. We didn't even know. Yeah. And so they shared with everybody that we don't care, and we didn't even call them, and we didn't do this. We didn't.
Which is true because
we didn't know.
Yeah.
And besides that, you didn't even come to the church.
Right.
Like literally, you didn't even come to the church. Nor did the person that passed away come to the church. But yet you have an expectation that we're supposed to just know and care? Yeah. I don't understand that. Yeah. Like in my head, I'm like, okay, so let's talk about this. When you're a part of a family, and they're your family, and something goes wrong, what do? You tell your family. Right. But you're involved in that family. You go to family dinners. You go to family functions. You text on a family thread. Correct?
Yeah.
So you know what's going on in the family.
We do. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the church is supposed to be like that. The capital C church, in your church, whatever church you go to, it should be looked at as it's a family. Yeah. But if you're not involved, like for instance, if you don't serve on a team and you don't go to go to a group, and you're not there regularly on the weekend participating and becoming a partner of Roots Church, how are we supposed to know to care for you when you just come on a Sunday morning and then you leave and you never communicate anything? Right. Yeah. How are we supposed to care for you?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great
question. If you attend online and you say you're a part of our church and still don't communicate what's going on, how are we supposed to care for you? Yeah. We want to care for all these people, but again, it's one of those. It's that thing where how are we supposed to care for you? Yeah. And what happens is these people, they get offended, they get bitter, they get mad, they get whatever verbiage you want to call it. I can't say what everybody gets because everybody has different feelings, but most of the time, the majority of the time, someone gets offended because somebody didn't call them, somebody didn't reach out, somebody didn't care enough, somebody thought this, and all we want is this, and all we want is that, and you get offended at that. Yeah. The other level is people come in, like this is and you probably were going to ask this, but since I'm thinking about it, we have people leave the church because they're not getting what they want from the church. And that's a big one. Mm-hmm. Because you should be looking for specific things in a church that's going to provide things for you. There's no doubt. Mm-hmm. However, this is where it becomes a challenge because we have people that come from the church world, which means they've been involved in a church for years, which means they have a playbook, they have a culture that they came out of. We have a culture here at Roots Church. These are not the same. But when they come, they bring their playbook, and they try to fit it inside our playbook with our culture, the way we do things. And guess what? That won't work. Right. And what happens is, because we don't do what they did here, they get mad, they get offended, they get whatever. Again, maybe they don't get mad, maybe they don't get offended, maybe they just say, this isn't going to work.
Maybe they're just missing out. They're missing that thing.
Or they just think this is the way it's supposed to be.
Right.
Well, it's not going to work.
Right.
And the reason why it's not going to work is because your church had a vision from your pastor. Yeah. Roots Church has a vision from me, the pastor. And those visions are the same as far as reaching lost people. But the way we do it, the doctrine, the theology, the system, the process, all those different things are going to be different.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I would just say to you, leave your playbook home because it ain't going to work here.
Yeah.
And then I will tell you scripturally, when you're speaking of that, it's very scriptural actually, because when you come to a church, we know this, that a lot of people come wanting something. And that's a big issue because your heart really is in the wrong place. Again, there's nothing wrong with wanting the church to provide something for you, a place of worship and word that you're receiving, a place for your kids to grow and attend and be a part, your teenagers, your students. That's all great things. But when you come into the church and you say, well, I want more of an old style worship. I want more hymns, or I want more scriptures taught. I want more outreach, or I want more this.
Consumer mindset.
It's a consumer mindset. So now it's what can the church do for me, when in reality it's what can you do for the church, because that's what we're supposed to do. So we're supposed to serve people. Yeah. And scripturally speaking, the Bible actually says that, I mean, there's a ton of different scriptures, but pretty much in Ephesians chapter 4, verses 11 through 13, it says, so Christ himself gave the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the pastors, and the teachers to equip his people for the works of service so that the body of Christ may be built up. In other words, God gives these types of people a gift. For me, it's a pastor, to where he equips me to pastor people, to pastor the church. It's the vision that God gave me. It's not your vision. And the problem is when you bring your vision in with my vision, it's a division.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You can't have two visions. Mm-hmm. What we should do as a churchgoer is submit under the authority of the pastor and his vision, and leave your vision out the door, because it's not about you at all. And we have a lot of people that try to bring in their vision, try to bring in their church, and I'm saying to them, you need to go start your own church. If you feel that strong about what you got going on, then go start your own church. Well, no, I don't want to start my own church. I just want to bring my ideas and my stuff into this church. Well, you're not the pastor of the church. Right. And the good news is you can go find another church. Maybe you can find a church that fits that vision. Yeah. And if you do, that's great. Go find that church. Roots Church isn't the one for you, or whatever church you're going to. But it's very scriptural that it is the pastor's vision that matters. Yeah. Because God chose that pastor to be the leader of that church. Right. And it's your job as a churchgoer to submit to that pastor's leadership, his authority, and his vision.
And you have a choice to do that.
And you have a choice. We don't make you.
We say that all the time. Roots Church is not for everybody.
No.
Right? So
it's not for everybody. But you have to submit. If this is going to be your church, you have to submit to that authority. Right. You have to submit to that vision and get on board with the vision.
And I think that's where a lot of people have the problem. I think that's where a lot of people don't think, in their previous experience, they've never maybe experienced being held accountable to that. So that could be where some of the offense happens, where it's like, okay, you come in, you have a different vision, you try to do your thing. Well, then there's going to definitely be a conversation that is had. And that's foreign to a lot of people. And so that's where you can sometimes get these offenses that come up, because our culture is not the type of culture where we just ignore things. Yeah. Because we're all about not looking for confrontation, but facing it when it comes our way head on in a healthy way, because that's how you protect culture. That's actually what God has asked us to do in his church. Yep. That's how we're supposed to be in our lives as well. And the problem is, a lot of people don't do that in their personal life. They don't do it in the corporate world. They don't do it in their work life. So it's foreign, but it's absolutely essential to what God has called us to do.
Yeah. Well, and you think about, again, these same people come with an agenda, all right? As an example, we've posted positions that we've needed in the church. Worship leader, children's director, whatever, creative director, whatever the position is. And all of a sudden now have people that come from other churches that aren't being used in the area that they want to be used, thinking that we have a need and that they'll be put in the position.
Right.
But they have no credibility, they have no buy-in, they've not been here, they haven't gone through any process, nothing, and yet expect us to just put them in the position. And when we don't, and they don't get chosen to be in the position, guess what they do? Mm-hmm. They leave. Why? Because they're here for the wrong reasons. Yeah. They're here only so they can be used in their place. And I'll tell you where the number one place this happens the most is in the worship team.
Worship. Yeah. Yeah.
We've had so many people leave our church because they wouldn't be used in the worship team. And guess what? We at Roots Church have a specific standard and quality that we go by, which means you can't sing most likely.
Or if you make it on the team and you want to be used in a different capacity, that, it's kind of like...
Yeah, well, you make it on the team, but you want to lead a song
Right.
every single time. Well,
Right.
that wasn't why you were on the team. You got on the
Right.
team to sing a harmony
Right.
or maybe to stack. But because you're not being used in that way, you get mad and offended, and then you leave.
Yeah.
Because we're not using you the way you want to be used. When the idea is you are to come onto the team and support whatever the vision is of the worship pastor, and at whatever level he wants to use you, and you should submit to that and just do whatever that is.
Yeah.
If you want to be on the team. Now, if you don't want to be on the team because that's the rules, then
No problem.
no big deal.
Yeah.
But it's like, to me, I've always learned that when I've served underneath Pastor Charles, when I served underneath my old pastor, I just did what they asked me to do. Now, I shared ideas, and if they shot them down, guess what? I sucked it up and said, you're the pastor, it's your vision, I'm going to do what you want. And I would do it the best that I could with my ability to make that happen, because that's what we're supposed to do as Christians, to support the vision. And so when people don't get their way, they don't get a position that they want, or they don't get to serve when they want, then they get mad. Let's just take that for a minute. We've had people say, well, I quit serving because all they want from me is serving. All they do is work, 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 work. No. First of all, that's not true. And second of all, that could be a possibility how maybe a previous leader may have come off because, again, we're flawed and we make mistakes, and maybe it was just all about serving from that leader. It's possible. We've had that happen.
It's possible.
But ultimately, what we say is we want you to be a part of the church. And here's what it takes. It takes that if you want to be on this team, this is our requirements. One, you have to sacrifice your time, which means serving is sacrifice. It's not, when I have availability, I'll serve. No, that's not serving. Serving and sacrifice is, we need you on this Sunday, and you say, I can do that. Then we say, we need you to come to a team meeting 2 times a year. We need you to come to a dream team night, which happens 2 times a year. And we need you to show up when you're scheduled to serve. And if you can't because something comes up, because we know it does, then you call somebody else to swap your day for their day. Yeah. We're not asking for a lot. No. Email communication. Yeah. But we have people that literally get mad because we've asked them to serve on a day that helps us, the church, but it's not convenient for them. And so therefore, they change the narrative that we're making them serve on this day. And
whenever we didn't force them to sign up to serve.
It's all of the misunderstandings that take place behind the scenes that nobody wants to talk about. And a lot of times, I'll be honest with you, in the serving world, it's a misunderstanding. Because maybe somebody has communicated with the leader about, maybe it's they get their child on the 2nd and the 4th weekends, and they don't want to serve on that day, and sometimes that gets a little messed up, and they get scheduled anyway, but instead of having a conversation about it, they just get mad and they quit.
Right. Yep. And that doesn't happen as often as people might think.
Yep.
I think, and I was talking to I was talking to somebody who serves on our security team. They're in law enforcement, and he was saying, it's interesting how I tell people they don't really understand what law enforcement is all about. It's really, we deal with 10% of the public 90% of the time.
That's good.
And I was like, I am stealing that, because in this regard, this is not the overwhelming majority. I mean, we have over 1,000 people that call Roots Church their home. And I would say among global church attendance, you have millions of people that attend church. This is not the overwhelming majority of people, but yet it is important to address this, because those people tend to go out and be the squeaky wheel, right? Yep. And the squeaky wheel gets the attention, right? Yep. And so it's not. I think it's just important for people to note that for the vast majority of people, they understand these things, and for the vast majority of people, they have these conversations. And that's why it's so frustrating when you have this remnant that refuses to have those conversations, and you're left with the questions, why? Because they don't even give you a chance to resolve it.
Nobody gives you a chance. It's very, very rare that anybody in the church gives you a chance to solve any issue.
And even if you do sit down with them, you give them your perspective, or maybe it's something where they just don't agree with how we're doing things, and you sit down in a conversation, you have the conversation, you're like, listen, we get that, but we're not changing what we're doing. Then they still leave offended.
Yep.
And then they're still carrying that offense because what they expected out of that meeting is for you to change your mind or for us to bend.
Yep.
And we've had countless examples of that as well,
Yep.
which is, again, self-serving in a way.
Yep. And listen, we had somebody one time say, well, we're not coming to Roots anymore because we want more prayer time, or we think that it needs to be deeper. Okay. Right. Well, can you tell me what that looks like for you? Right. And then they'll explain what that looks like. And the problem is it is not our culture at all. Mm-hmm. And what they wanted was a smaller church that had longer service times with more prayer time built into the service, to where they just go up on the front and have more prayer time and more flow of the Spirit and whatever, which is perfectly fine. But that's not who we are. That's not what we do. And it doesn't mean we're wrong. It doesn't mean that the church that they found or where they're trying to look for is wrong. It's just we do it differently. Yep. And so we said, we understand that. You're looking for this? No problem. And they left well. There was no issue. They just felt like they wanted more. We've had people leave because they wanted a smaller church. No problem. We've had people leave because they moved areas and it was too long of a drive. They loved us, but it was just too far. And I agree. You need to be within your community. So, no issues. But, probably the one, we can't hit every scenario. And that was the thing with my wife's post was, she tried to round out, and she even said in the very beginning, we cannot account for every single situation and every single person with every single this. It's impossible because everything is so different. Right. However, the thing that was on our hearts, mostly hers at the time when she posted that, is the fact that I think what we don't want is we just don't want you to leave bitter or an unresolved issue because you take that with you into the next place, and it's not good for you in your life more than anything. Right. And there's there should be no conversation that should never be had in the church when something goes wrong. So if we've ever offended you, it's really just come up to us and say, hey, can we talk? Hey, do you have time for us to sit down and talk? Yes, let's talk about that. And then we sit down and we talk about it. And we try to work it out. Now, we may get to a place where we have to agree to disagree. We may get to a place where maybe it was just a complete misunderstanding. We may get to a place where we were completely wrong and we apologize. We may get to a place where you were completely wrong and you need to apologize. There's again, I can't tell you exactly what it is because there's too many scenarios. Yeah. We've even had people that come to me and think certain things about my projection of an idea or my projection of a vision is not biblical. And I can show them everywhere biblically how it supports it and how, I don't want to get into the details because it doesn't matter. But they still say, well, we just don't see it that way. Okay. Well, at that point, then you need to find a church where you can get under the vision of the pastor. But when you leave, you should leave on good terms where you're not burning bridges. You should leave where you just say, hey, I just don't feel it's that way. I think it's best for me to find another place. No problem. We love you. And listen, man, if God ever changes your mind or your heart, you are welcome to come back and have that conversation.
And we've had those people, some of those people come back.
We have.
And say, hey, listen, you were in the wrong, but I want to have a conversation with you. It goes well. Hey, I was in the wrong. Can we have a conversation? It goes well.
Yep.
We've had countless people like that. Yep. Who leave for seasons and come back.
Yeah. So we've had good conversations with the ones that did have the conversation, and they left. They still left. Yeah. They still chose another church. No big deal. I don't think people should use the phrase, well, God is telling me to go elsewhere. I think that is so far few in between. Most of the time, it's you want to go elsewhere because you have a selfishness about yourself of what you're not getting, and so you end up leaving. And I'm not saying that's bad all the time. Right. I'm not saying that. But to always use God's leading me elsewhere, that is just a bogus line that we use to get out of a real hard conversation.
It's the God card.
It's the God card.
Most of the time.
Most of the time. Yeah. Again, we're talking about the majority. Yeah. The majority of the time, I do believe God can move you from a place, no doubt. Yep. But the majority of the time, people use the God card to get out of a hard conversation. Yep. Now, the group I want to talk about is the group that leaves and doesn't tell you why. And then they go tell everybody all the bad things. And then they have an expectation that you're just supposed to know all of the bad things. Mm-hmm. That we're supposed to evaluate who we are without knowing what we've done. Mm-hmm. I need you, the audience, to help me understand that philosophy. You don't agree. Maybe there was something we've done, something we've said that you don't agree with. You start seeing red flags and you exit. And you never tell anybody why. And then later you go share with other people, that leadership, they really need to look at themselves, or they need to evaluate something, or blah, 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 whatever your thing is. How are we supposed to do better if you don't share that with us? Mm-hmm. That's what I want to know. Mm-hmm. Because I'm saying that we could possibly have done something wrong. We could have said something wrong. I could have. I remember not too long ago, I was teaching and I was talking about how God does not tempt us, but he tests us, and I got it backwards. Mm-hmm. And somebody got all offended at that. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, thank God somebody else came to me and said, hey, when you said this, you said that God tests us, or that God tempts us. And I said, I did? He said, yeah. And he goes, I was just hoping that you didn't mean it that way. I said, absolutely not. I did not mean that. What I meant is God does test us, but he does not tempt us. Now, what I did say is he will not allow you to be tempted more than you can handle. That's the scripture. Mm-hmm. But he will give you more than you can handle as a person, because he wants you to rely on him. Right. And I just kind of mixed it up, got my words mixed up, and all of a sudden, I was a bad teacher and bad theologian because I said it wrong. And it's like, no, I'm a human being. I mess up. Sometimes I get to talking so fast that my brain don't catch up. Yeah. And it's just simple, just coming up to me and asking me, and I'll clarify that, no, if I said it that way, I'll rectify it. And guess what? The next week I got up and I rectified. The next week I said, hey, if anybody you in here and I said it this way, I said it wrong. This is the right theology. This is what the Bible says. And I mean,
public speaking, it happens.
Again, this is the issue, man. We're under a microscope, man. Not a microscope, a humongous magnifying glass, man. Everybody comes in here looking for something. Again, not all of it's intentional, but man, when you start to feel issues, you're really looking, man. You're looking for every little flaw just to show me up and call me out and have a reason to leave. It's like, man, where's the heart? Because I'm not doing that to you. My wife and I are not looking at all your flaws and all your mistakes. No, we just love that you're here and we're working together. Yeah. And we want to help you and love you and work together, because that's what we're supposed to do. Yeah. But it's those ones that leave, and you know who they are, mm-hmm. because they're the ones still commenting. They're the ones still making sure everybody knows we're a bad church. They're the ones still holding on to an unresolved issue because they're letting everybody know the bad stuff about us. And they're also the ones that leave and don't say anything and just go behind your back and gossip and share lies. And it's like, I don't get it. Yeah. That's the part that hurts the most.
No, for sure. Well,
and it is poison.
Yeah, I mean,
it's poison.
Well, bitterness unresolved is cancer to the bones, cancer to the body. That's what the Word of God says, that when we don't handle bitterness and resentment, it's cancerous.
Yes.
And how does cancer present? There's internal symptoms first, and then it comes out of us.
And listen, Austin, at the end of the day, man, the devil doesn't work from the outside in.
Right.
He works from the inside out.
Do you mean, though, that the people that leave are demon possessed? Can you clarify that?
No.
Okay.
Yeah,
I just want to make sure that
I think somebody might have said that. No.
Yeah, okay. I'm just
what I
sure.
mean is when we are flawed,
right,
and we begin to have bitterness, unresentment, unforgiveness, unresolved issues, what you've done is you've creaked the door open for the devil to wiggle his way into your mind and into your life to start thinking the worst things. And what you have is stinking thinking. And when you have stinking thinking, the next thing you know, you start treating people like that. The next thing you know, you start dividing people because you're looking for alliances of how you felt, and you're looking for people, did they feel the same way? And that's what you see with a group of people that has left this church. They get together talking, wherever that may be.
Could be social media.
Whether it's social media, maybe they're friends, maybe they're bypassers, whatever. But they find these little alliances to validate what they've gone through. But at the end of the day, they're holding on to unresolved issue. They're holding on to bitterness and resentment, and they've never, ever let us know how we've hurt them. And that is the part that is hard for my wife and I. That's the part for us is hard for us to let go, because it's like, golly, can we just have a chance to explain ourselves? Can we have a chance to say, I'm sorry if we've messed up? Can we have a chance to because really what it is, it's a misunderstanding. Mm-hmm. And what most people do in cases like this post is they don't seek to understand the reason behind the post, is they just have blame.
Well, and they use a post that even you said, and she said it in the post. You said it here, she said it on the post, that this post was not to cover every situation and every single person.
Or to call anybody out.
Or to call anyone out. But here's what people do. They read a post like that, and then they assign themselves as the recipient of that post.
Yep.
And so then that's why we see some of the responses that we've seen, and then other people feed off of that.
And
but
here's what go ahead.
I
would say if that is the case, this is why you're responding the way you are.
Yeah.
If you go into it as the recipient,
right,
on the subject, they're talking about me,
right, then you're gonna
you are the perfect example of why we're talking about this today.
Yeah.
To me, it's like, reach out.
Yeah.
Let's talk.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you right now, we care about you.
Yeah.
And we love you no matter what has been done. I feel like we could work it out. I really do. I absolutely do. But both sides have to be humble, and both sides have to be willing. Now, if you're going to ask me to change my theology and you're going to ask me to change my vision, that's probably where we're going to have to part ways.
Sure.
However, the personal side of maybe how we've handled something, or maybe how I've said something, the way I've said it, things like that, we can address.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
What I was going to say is, because back to the post for a second, because I think this is a perfect, I think this needs to be clarified. So, we've mentioned in that post that it's focusing on offense, right? Offense.
Yes.
That's not the only reason people leave a church.
Correct.
So, like, in my mind, an offense could be, you say from the platform, sleeping together before you're married is a sin. Well, that's not really offense even. That's conviction.
Right.
But what's the result of conviction when we're not ready to hear it? It's offense.
Right.
And so you leave the church because of that.
Yep.
You avoid a conversation, you disappear because you know that that's speaking to you.
Yep.
So that's offense. And you could allow that offense to become bitterness and then to become poison in how you leave, right?
Yep.
Then there's also the other side, in my mind, that was not addressed in the post, which is hurt.
Yep.
So hurt would be a real situation where feelings come up, and something was said. It can be offense, but there's something deeper there that person is carrying that we may not know. And so, like, hurt would be, somebody sat down with a pastor or their leader, and something was said, or they were treated a certain way. And so I guess the question is there a difference between those things? And is that post all encompassing, or to the people that have been hurt, inadvertently, of course, but we're flawed, we make mistakes. I guess my question is like, is that still a valid reason to not have a conversation? And have we ever shied away from a conversation where hurt has happened and a conversation still needs to be had? You get what am I communicating this well?
If you've been hurt in a conversation, I'll give you a perfect example of this. And I can speak to this because she's now my daughter-in-law.
Okay.
All right.
Perfect.
I remember years ago, Taylor coming to me, and this is no secret.
Right.
She's in a same-sex relationship. My wife are sitting down with her and her partner, and they asked us how we felt and why she couldn't be in leadership in the church, and they were frustrated because she couldn't be in leadership in the church, but yet there were other leaders in the church sinning. Mm-hmm. It's a great question. I agree. We all are sinners. However, that sin of homosexuality is a blatant outward against what the Bible says. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that infidelity, those people get removed when we find out. They get removed. Any of that sin, they get removed. You're sleeping together, you're living together, and you're not married, you get removed from leadership. We don't know it might be happening, so it may be happening unbeknownst to us, but when we find out, they get removed. Mm-hmm. But we sat down with them and we expressed our hearts biblically why we are against that. Mm-hmm. Guess what? They were offended. Mm-hmm. They were hurt. Mm-hmm. They asked us to come to their wedding. We would not go. We can't support that. They were hurt by that, which means they were also offended. Well, there's nothing we can do about it. We had the conversation. They didn't like the truth that we spoke. We did it in love.
And you didn't reject them. You were rejecting the lifestyle to
Reject
affirm
the lifestyle only. And we told them we loved them, we cared about them, but the lifestyle just doesn't match what the Word of God says, and we just can't do it. Well, years go by. All of a sudden, conviction starts to take place. And I will tell you that Taylor came to my wife and I a year after pretty much she was divorced from her same-sex marriage. She came to us and said that God ended up convicting her and revealing the truth. And literally her words to my wife and I were this: I'm sorry that I didn't listen and that I allowed whatever to get the best of me. And I'm thankful that you told me the truth, even when it hurt. Those were her words. Yeah. So, there's going to be times. We had another couple leave because they were living together. And they weren't married. Mm-hmm. And they were involved in leadership. And we went to them and said, hey, I just found this out. This cannot happen. Mm-hmm. And they brought their Bible. They tried to show me scripturally where it said this and said that, and in their hearts of what they were doing. And I said, listen, I'm not denying that maybe you're trying to abstain from sex by living together and you not being married. Mm-hmm. However, the Bible's very clear. The appearance of evil is not good. Right. And if you're trying to lead a young group of people to not have sex, not be intimate, but yet you're living together like a married couple, it's sin. Right. Guess what? They got upset. Yeah. They left the church, said a bunch of bad things about us. And the reality is we love them still to this day. We care for them still to this day. They're married to this day, which is amazing, and I hope their life is blessed. But at the end of the day, my job is to bring correction and direction to people that are under my care. And you were a leader. Now, if you're just a churchgoer, I'm not coming up to you and calling you out. Right. All right. No. Now, if you ask me, I'm going to tell you the truth. Yeah. But that's another level of offense and hurt. And I think that's happened many, many times with my wife. She had hard conversations with ladies. They don't like what she says. They get offended, and then they just kick her off to the side, and they just treat her and me and everybody else like we're the outcast. I've had the same conversations with men.
Because you're bringing truth that is hard to hear. Yes. And you're doing it in the most loving way possible.
Yeah, and maybe sometimes I have done it in an unloving way.
So in those situations, what would you say to those people that Pastor Aaron has talked to that maybe she hasn't? She's not in the room, so we can't know that. But for you can speak to this. For anyone that you might not have said it the right way. We all have emotions. What would you say to those people? I
would say if you are still bothered by something that anybody has done, especially though my wife and I would say that if you're still bothered and hurt and offended or it's unresolved, I would say reach out to us. Yeah. Let us know what that is and let us have a conversation with you. This doesn't mean we're asking you to come back to church. This is not asking us to be friends or any of that. This is just literally to try to resolve whatever has not been resolved so you, the person, can move on. Yeah. Because my wife and I, we move on. Yeah. We don't know what's hurt you. We can't be bothered by that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. 100%. And that's usually the way unforgiveness is. I said it Sunday. Unforgiveness is realizing that you're letting go of the prisoner, but that prisoner is you. Yep.
The person holding the unforgiveness.
The person holding on to unforgiveness is the prisoner, and the prisoner is you. Because the only person it hurts is you. It doesn't hurt the other person. Yeah. Forgiveness is not forgetting what's happened, but definitely letting go and moving on. And that's really what needs to happen with those people. Now, if they don't want to, it's no big deal. But the other layer I would put onto that is if you don't want to bring any resolve to that and you said, I've moved on, fine. Here's the second thing I would tell you. Keep your mouth shut.
It's kind of like in a marriage. Well,
quit speaking negativity over the church, me, my wife, the leadership, or if it's someone else in your life, your mom, your dad, your aunt, your uncle, keep your mouth shut. If you don't want to resolve the issue, then stop gossiping. Yeah.
It's like in a this is kind of a weird analogy.
Even if it's true, it's still gossip.
Yeah. When there's other parties involved.
Because you don't have all the truth.
Yeah. Oh, it's kind of like whenever we talk about those things and we're not willing to let go, forgive. It's kind of like in a relationship where infidelity has happened, and the person who was cheated on, they say, no, I'm not going to leave you. We're going to continue in this relationship, but yet they keep bringing up the infidelity after they've decided to forgive and move on. It's like, no, you can't keep pulling that trump card every single time that happens. You've committed. 100%. So it's like, all right, if you're not willing to stay here and work it out and you've moved on, then let it be.
Yep.
You know, and so
seen it happen so many times.
Yeah.
So many times.
Now, if you're not willing to move on, then have that conversation.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
for sure, you know, so
I mean, biblically, you're released from the relationship. But if you say yes after infidelity has happened, you as the victim cannot keep pulling the trump card that you're going to divorce them because that you're not over your healing.
Right.
It's the same thing.
It's the same thing.
So I would say to those people, man, we love you. We care about you. Listen, this conversation, the only reason why I'm having it is because all this stuff, it's not just this. I have pastor friends where they just had people leave the church. And it is hard for us as pastors because we're literally put in a position held to such a high standard, got to do everything right and perfect and this and that. There's no grace given for anybody. And I think all we're asking for is a little grace. We're asking for a little grace. We're asking for a little bit of a conversation. We're asking that we can just sit down and talk about it. And if we've talked about it and we come to the agreement where we can't work through it, no big deal. I had a conversation with a lady about a particular thing in the church. She thought we were going down the wrong road theology. I told her, Pastor Charles was with me. We had the conversation. And, well, she decided that she still felt like we were in the direction she was feeling, so she left the church. But she's not out there blasting us.
Right.
She just said, I think it's best for me to find another church. Fine. We understand that. And thank you. And we love you.
Yep.
And we hope that things go well where you go. Because we know Roots Church is not for everybody.
100%.
And what we don't want is a cesspool of hurt, broken, unresolved issues going to other churches.
Right.
Because it is poison.
Yep.
And just to clarify, not everybody that leaves the church is poisoned.
There you go. I think that's
it was in the post.
Yeah.
However, the unresolved issues, the undealt with things that are still holding on to bitterness, that's the poison we're talking about. And it's dangerous. And my wife and I, you know what? We don't want that. So, listen.
Oh, this is good.
I think I covered it all.
Yeah,
I hope that my heart was clear.
Yeah.
I hope I kept myself together. Because, we love people, we care for people, and that's what we want. And we hope that if you've been hurt, that you'll come talk to us, or if we've offended you, let us know so we can have that conversation. And if you've left for the right reasons, good. And hopefully you are in a better place where you are and you're thriving and growing, because that's what we want, because really what matters to us is the capital C church, not just Roots Church.
Yep.
Listen, we got to roll. We've been here a long time. I want to thank all of you for being here. I was looking at the wrong camera. We want to thank all of you for being with us today. Don't forget, share this with somebody who's been hurt by church. Share this with somebody that's left the church, especially Roots Church. Let them hear from my heart. Thank you. Peace out.